Good morning and welcome to the Hiawatha State of the City meeting. My name is Pat Callanan and I am the current chair of the Hiawatha Economic Development Corporation. And along with me today is the Mayor of Hiawatha, Mr. Bill Bennett. Welcome, Mayor. The past several months have presented many challenges to all of us. These are unique times and we thank you for taking the time to live stream this year's event. We feel like we have an exciting agenda and many updates on what has been happening here in Hiawatha. Before we get started, I'd like to recognize companies that are making today's State of the Address possible. Our title sponsors are Alliant Energy and ITC. Also, you will see many companies listed on this webpage, and they are the companies of our dedicated HEDCO Board of Directors. I'd like to recognize them as well. Again, I'm Pat Callanan, and I'm the 2019 chair. I work at Hawkeye Communication. We have Mark Parmenter, who is the vice chair with Leader Weston Craig, Rusty Smith, secretary and treasurer with Farmer State Bank, Kirk Hayden with Metro Studios. This is where this webcast is actually originating from today here in Hiawatha. We have Kyle Coons with Honkamp and Kruger, Tyler McCarville with Kirkwood Community College, Chad Pelly with Almond Design, CJ Clean with Back in Line Chiropractic, Nick Canfield with CCB Packaging, Jeremy Rees with Hawkeye Electric, Emily Upa with Alliant Energy, Melissa White with Balanced Fitness and Health, Joel Roschlau with Heritage Bank, and Hassan Igram with Cedar Graphics. We really had a great year. We look forward to sharing with you some of our successes. At the end of this session, we will be answering any questions that you submitted. So please send your questions for myself, Mayor Bennett, and our keynote speaker, Debbie Durham, who is director of the Iowa Economic Development Authority. It's very simple. Just fill out the form below on this page and we will get you the questions in real time and try to address them at the end of this presentation. All right, now that all this housekeeping items are taken care of, let's get started. In 2019, HEDCO was the driving force behind some of the following. We supported projects that resulted in $9 million of capital investment. We gained 5 new investors to HEDCO with an overall 98% retention rate. We had more than 16,000 unique visitors at hedco.org. We invested nearly $37,000 to marketing to local businesses. We personally met with 30 existing businesses to learn more about what their companies do. We supported the Hiawatha and Metro community in their Tower Terrace Build Grant. There'll be more on this later in this presentation. We held 6 in-person and virtual networking business education sessions. We celebrated the Hiawatha Hustle and promoted Shop Where I Live. We worked to partner with Kirkwood to create a co-space for beginning entrepreneurs. We were also lucky enough to be partners to 11 ribbon cuttings, and those companies will be listed here. Quickstar, Eagle Technology, Taco John's, Sylvan Learning Center, Edward Jones, Hope Hearing and Tinnitus Center, Sherwin-Williams, Proactive Therapy, Thrivent Financial, Unity Point Clinic Express, and World Class Industries. In addition to these 11 ribbon cuttings, we were fortunate enough to celebrate 3 company anniversaries as well. First one was Sylvan Learning Center. They celebrated 40 years. Bees Coins in Cedar Rapids, Toyota celebrated 50 years. HEDCO really prides itself in hitting the streets and getting to know our local businesses. We did a local business survey, and some of the things we learned were 100% of the returned responses say they introduced new products in the last 5 years. 78% stated that their sales are increasing. 78% plan to expand in the next 3 years. 67% stated their market share is increasing. And 33% indicated that they're experiencing recruitment problems. Probably no surprise on this one. Mayor Bennett is going to talk a little bit about some of the amenities that we do to assist local businesses in recruiting and retaining top talent. The surveys also told us that we have some weaknesses, such as heavy traffic on Boyson Road, online internet competition, lack of hotels in our immediate area, shortage of restaurants in Hiawatha. The survey also told us about some of our strengths, such as close proximity to Interstate 380, our diverse population, our growing community, the land availability, our quality infrastructure, and probably the most important was ease of doing business with Hiawatha. We feel like our strengths definitely outweigh our weaknesses. More importantly, we have acknowledged where we need to get better, and we do have a solid plan. One surprise we ran into unexpectedly this year was COVID-19. While this was difficult to plan for, we have made adjustments and continue to help our community through education in the following ways: the Payment Protection Program, the EIDL program, updates on our HEDCO webpage, including CDC guidelines and information from the Iowa Public Health as they are announced. We have hosted webinars on COVID best practices and continue to strategize on ways to help support our local businesses. We feel that the best way to deal with COVID-19 is to stay engaged with our resources and disseminate the information to our business as it becomes available. There will be more to come throughout the year on this. Please continue to check our website for updates. Well, we've covered a fair amount of talking points on what has been happening here in Hiawatha. Let's get into some of the fun projects and see what's been happening with our infrastructure. Here to walk us through some of the projects is our Mayor, Bill Bennett. Mayor, Hiawatha has just celebrated a huge milestone, haven't we?
Yes, we did, Pat. We just celebrated our 70th birthday. And we've experienced Fay Clark was our founder, and he would be so proud of Hiawatha today. Just to give you Hiawatha's story in a decade, listen to some of these big numbers. This year, Hiawatha reached $1 billion in tax evaluation with a 9.8% growth. From 2010 to 2020, we estimate a 6% population growth. The ambulance service calls increased by 45%, going from 949 ambulance calls to 1,374. We added 235 units of single-family dwelling. We also added 1 million square feet of commercial property, as well as 607 acres of development ground in our northwest area. Our parks are growing. We added land adjacent to Tucker Park. We built the Dave Wright Dog Park adjacent to Cedar Valley Nature Trail, and now we're developing Turtle Creek Park off Edgewood Road, totaling 30 acres. Our community continues to double in size throughout the day. We have 7,400 at night and 14,000 during the day with our workforce. 20,000 cars navigate Boyson Road exit the interchange during the day. We continue to reduce our levy rate by 62 cents in just the last 3 years. Our library services more than 126,000 people with a 25% increase in programming. There is a 75% increase in use of our park systems. We founded HUDCO, who spends $37,000 annually promoting and marketing over 400 Hiawatha businesses.
Wow, those are pretty impressive numbers. One of the things I notice when you drive around town is you see a lot of dirt being moved and some new streets going in. And one of the things that caught my eye was the Oak Brook Village Center redevelopment. Can you tell us a little bit about that and kind of what's going to happen there?
Well, Oak Brook Village is on Robbins Road, and it was the original trailer park that Fay Clark started. We have a 5-phase project that starts probably late this year. The first phase is multifamily units, estimated value of $25 million. The second phase is 3 mixed-use dwellings units with lower-level commercial retail use, and estimated value is about $3.2 million. The fourth phase will be similar, with the retail on the bottom, and then the fifth phase is still yet to come.
Oh, wow. I've also noticed on North Center Point Road, there's some new buildings going up there and kind of between North Center Point Road and 380. Can you tell us a little bit about what's happening there?
Yeah, we call that Hunter Commerce. That development has just begun. You can see the building going up there. The first of the 3 buildings that will end up there is a flex use building. It's warehouse and office space, estimated at $2.8 million. The second building that plans to go there is this similar type of building, maybe a little smaller, estimated at $1.9 million. And then the third building is yet to be discussed.
Okay. Boy, that's great. One of the other things I've noticed is along Boyson Road, right by the interstate, I believe it's the old Intent City building. There's been a lot of activity there and some exciting things happening. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, the Mercy Care has made an investment in Hiawatha that we're excited about. It's their first standalone emergency department, and it's open 24 hours a day. They're looking at having 15,000 patients throughout the year, 41 patients a day, 7 surgery rooms, added specialty practices, and the grand opening would be August 3rd. I hope you can be there, Pat.
Well, it's really exciting. Yeah, I'm sure I'll make time to do that. Mm-hmm. Well, so we've got a lot of commercial space going up. There's things happening in the city. One of the things I hear about is hotel. Is there hotel space, and is there any plans for anything like that coming?
Well, our business community was in the forefront of this hotel study. We were amazed by the need of our community has for a hotel. Companies like Crystal Group, Mercy Care, Wolf Eye Clinic, and many more were excited about the hotel close by and need weekly stays. Top amenities requested were complimentary breakfast, pool, meeting room, restaurant, bar. Based on our study feedback, the hotel's return of investment was over 11%. Sounds good to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so you've got just about everything going on. One thing we haven't really talked about is housing. So with the city growing and these things happening, can you tell us a little bit about what's on the horizon for housing and how we're going to accommodate that?
Well, it's been a long time since we've done a housing study, so we jumped into that in 19. And the housing study indicated that our future housing stock for 2019 is estimated population growth of 8,362. The growth trend is continuing, and large daytime population, of course. And the study represented 521 housing units shortage. That's a lot. Mm-hmm. 2004, the projected housing shortage will be 387 units. And then clear to 2019, we're thinking 337 units short. So focus on the gap of housing for single family and multifamily.
Okay. So what kind of things are on the horizon as far as what can we expect to see from housing based on that study?
Well, Pat, as you can see on the monitor there, that we got 3 big housing developments going up right now. We have the Del Ridge 4th Edition, which is another 34 lots for single family. Rolling Prairie Edition of 75 lots for single family. And then we got the newest one is Todd Hill's, estimated at 70 lots. And if you get a chance, Pat, drive out there because it's just a beautiful place, and I see tennis courts and amenities that you just sometimes don't see.
Oh, that's really exciting.
Yep.
So when you talk about more commercial space, more housing, more of that type of thing, one of the things that leads me to next is fire protection. Is the existing fire department big enough to sustain all that, or is there any plans to have any changes?
Well, that's a constant project that we continue to look into. We did a study, and key recommendations was the idea of relocating the existing station into a more opportunity area. And then we also are looking at we haven't gave up on the idea of maybe a second station. We need to begin the process of establishing demand zones, which is the hot spots where they spend their time going to.
Okay. When I hear that there's going to be some public safety facility projects coming up and maybe, well, the library expansion, I've been watching that kind of develop. Can you talk about those two projects?
Well, the library completion date is, we're hoping for around October. We're excited about that. It triples in size. It's going to be a neat deal. The other is our public safety facility and training center. We've decided to build that, and it's just adjacent from our city hall. And so for convenience and stuff, that building is going to be 7,200 square feet. It provides security indoor storage for our vehicles, police department vehicles, and our community development department vehicles. Classroom and physical training space. Construction started in June. We're hoping it's done by December. And construction cost is under $1 million. So we're excited about that.
Well, it seems like a lot of building for $1 million is a lot of money, but that seems like you're watching the money tightly and spending it wisely. So one of the things that excites me when I hear about the fire station and the police station buildings is being able to retention and recruitment of resources and personnel. So I'm glad to see that. Right outside the library from the slide here, there's been a lot of activity there. Also been watching that develop. Looks like the street lights are up and active now, and it looks even more cleaned up than the photo shows. Can you talk a little bit about what that's all about and why we did it?
Right, Pat. Well, we had just a short area to finish. You know, you've experienced the construction that we did on North Center Point Road to the north. Well, this is our last piece to connect to Cedar Rapids. And during construction of the library, we found from citizens that they appreciated the idea of people stopping at that interchange. And so we went to the plan of having a stoplight and making more amenities for that. Cedar Valley Nature Trail goes in there. There's just a lot of traffic, and the citizens really seem to enjoy the idea of the safety and the convenience that intersection now gives them.
Yeah, that's great, with a lot of bicycles on that trail. I know, I see that all the time. Well, one of the big topics since I've been on HEDCO has always been Tower Terrace, what's happening out there, the interchange, when that's going to happen. And from the screen here, it looks like there's a lot of diagramming and a lot of things on the horizon there. Can you talk about what we're looking at and how that's going to benefit?
Well, as every year, we're excited about Tower Terrace finally going to be built. The interchange is going to be built. It's going to start the end of 21, or the beginning of somewhere in 21. We're not positive yet, but it's going to end up being done in 24. And then this is the adjacent to the east, and Hiawatha has chosen a roundabout, which should be really, really convenient for the businesses in that area.
Okay. Well, it's what that project was pretty expensive. Can you talk about or how much it was and where that money came from?
Right. There's 5 entities, and we all partnered to do a RISE grant, and the funding to bridge I-380 to 13, the total project's at $60 million. Hiawatha's portion is $3 million. All entities approved a joint build grant memorandum of understanding. This grant would provide $25 million toward the project. The build grant turned in May 18th, and the application awarding in October of 2020. All the cities and all the councils and Lynn County approved the joint NEPA 28E agreement. County and Snyder Associates have worked through the scope of services and begin preliminary designs. Should be neat. If awarded, the metro communities would anticipate IDOT RISE grants, ICAP, and other fund sources to complete the project. And can you hear this? 5 years. So that's amazing.
Yeah, it is. So you had mentioned 5 entities. What do you mean by that?
Well, it's Hiawatha, Robbins, Marion, Cedar Rapids, and then Lynn County.
Okay, so all those are part of that connected from there to Highway 13.
From I-380 to Highway 13, there's 5 entities. And
Boy, that's great. A lot of collaboration there between those.
It's working great.
That's
yes.
awesome. Well, with everything we're talking about, it's just kind of leading us to the next thing, which if you have more houses and more businesses and more people, what are we doing for water? What's our plan to have enough water and to have contingency plans?
Well, right now we're in process of building a 1 million gallon storage tank. And it's out there on Fitzroy, which would be the northwest side of Hiawatha, where all those housing developments are going on. This project completed will obviously house 1 million gallons of water. It complements our two 500,000 gallon elevated tanks that you can see out throughout the city. Focusing on the northwest area creates a secure volume of water out there. Mm-hmm. Can assist the fire protection in the event that the water main out of service. Mm-hmm. So we got that going for us.
Sure.
Creates redundancy for Hiawatha's water system for when an elevated tank would have to come out of service for maintenance. And so it's redundancy that's real nice.
Okay, well, it's a lot of stuff you just mentioned, and I know people watching today and taxpayers, when they see all this activity, they say, okay, where's this money coming from? How are we going to pay for it?
Well, luckily, right now we have the armed with much needed funding. The local option sales tax program has increased our ability to improve our parks, streets, sewers, and water infrastructure. Supporting funding for much needed building expenses like the library update, the public safety equipment and facilities. Projects supported are like Edgewood Northwest, Robbins Road improvements, Guthridge Park Trail improvement, sewers at Mitchell Drive, library expansion, renovation, and projects like ambulance power carts, Edgewood Road water sewer expansion project, the Fitzroy water tank, and the fire hydrant upgrades. Solar panel installations on the Public Works building, Public Safety building, Tower Terrace Road interchange expansion project. This run of Lost ends out in 2020. If our communities see Lost as a work and value the opportunities these dollars bring to our communities, hopefully they'll vote them back in.
Sure. Boy, with all that's happened and occurred with that, the local option sales tax money you mentioned, that looks like it's going to great use.
Yes, I think it is.
Well, thank you, Mayor, and thank you to our city council and staff for moving the city forward like they do. Next up is Debbie Durham, Director of the Iowa Economic Development and Finance Authority. Debbie is a friend to Hiawatha and a longtime economic and community development professional. She prides herself on building coalitions, supporting new ventures, and strengthening the state's industries and communities. Among many of her several accolades, she was named Most Influential Business Leader in the 2019 Des Moines Business Record Book of Lists. Today she'll spark your interest as she highlights the state of Iowa's economy and its workforce as it navigates COVID-19 and what the future holds for Iowa. Welcome, Debbie.
Welcome.
And thank you for joining us today.
Well, good morning. I think it's good morning, maybe close to good afternoon. And Mayor, I certainly appreciated all your comments and so pleased to see your community's strategic vision for growth. That has always set Hiawatha apart, and I'm so glad to see that legacy continue. And Pat, I certainly appreciated your recap as well. And I am such a fan of the Synchronous program, as you well know, and to see that you also believe in the great data that Synchronous does. And I want to thank all the companies out there that participate in that data gathering for us. So again, it is indeed a pleasure to join you. So we're going to switch. I'm going to do a PowerPoint, and as we load that, I'm going to kind of give you a state of where we are today. We're going to talk about recovery, we're going to talk about some plans for As soon as we get that set up, very good. We're going to talk about relief plans that we've been working with, and then we're going to talk about recovery. And of course, I'll be with you for the duration of the broadcast so that we can answer any questions. So the first few slides, what I'm going to do is kind of give you a high level. And the slides I'm going to be sharing with you are actually slides that were provided to us from the Department of Revenue. And some of the comments I'm making are comments that Robin Anderson, who is our state economist who's with the Department of Revenue, has provided. So basically what we show in this slide here is stabilizing, recovery, and growth. And that's how we define the phases of our recovery process. In the stabilized period, the economy actually bottoms out. Employment bottoms, unemployment rate and jobless claims are climbing as we see, or peak. And we want to obviously reduce the employment losses in this period and keep households afloat. The recovery period is when activity and employment start to turn around. Indicators of joblessness improve, but there is still a lot of uncertainty about how long this phase will last. And then finally, the last phase that we're going to talk about is growth. And that is where the economy and jobs moves beyond the previous peak and new businesses are actually being created and current businesses expand and invest. So COVID has been obviously an unprecedented shock to the Iowa and U.S. economy. The Iowa economy was doing okay pre-COVID, but there were still significant pockets of weaknesses within our economy, manufacturing and ag being one. Now, this is concerning to me because manufacturing, as you all know, is one of our largest growth state products. It is our largest economic driver. But I honestly believe a lot of that had to do with the uncertainty and on these trade agreements and how long we're able to take many of those across the finish line, particularly USMCA. So I have to tell you that back in December, when I had a meeting with Governor Reynolds, I had predicted, based on our pipeline of projects and conversations of data that I was seeing from surveying such as Synchronous and other data points, that we were going to have one of the strongest economic development years we've ever had. And that's saying a lot because we've had some really stellar years since 2011. So that's kind of where it was. In the middle of March, as businesses shuttered, COVID had a historic shock on the Iowa and U.S. economy. No surprise to all of you who are living this every day. Jobless claims spiked in the last 2 weeks of March. Initial claims peaked in the first week of April at about 64,000. That's about as many jobs that were lost in total in Iowa during the last recession. So I think that's a really important note to make. The service sector was hit, obviously, the hardest, losing 13% of all jobs in April. Manufacturing lost about 4.7% of the jobs in that April timeframe as well. So, of course, we know that those people that are consumer-facing businesses certainly have suffered the most. But manufacturing, as I said, was already showing more signs of weakness. And I think so it'll be interesting to see. One of the things, I had a call today with the governor's office. And, you know, the extra $600 a week CARES Act money that is being given to those unemployed runs out at the end of this month. And IWD has had conversations with manufacturers that are working their employees at that 21-hour-a-week level so they can still draw unemployment and get that benefit. So we really expect to have we'll have a better idea of what's really happening out there once that CARES Act goes away at the end of the month. Now, of course, none of us know what Congress is going to do as far as re-upping that. I know the Senate bill will be released today. So how has the recovery progressed at this time? The deep freeze in the Iowa economy is probably over, but the economy is still in a very fragile state. Real-time data shows that activity bottomed in early April and started to turn around well ahead when the state started to open. Spending picked up pretty significantly around that time that stimulus payments started happening. Initial claims peaked in early April but remain elevated. Now, this is also very important, you know, and I've been doing economic development longer than I care to admit, and have seen many cycles. You know, what happened with the economy after, of course, an incident like 9/11. to what happened in the economy in the 08-09 recession. I have never seen the kind of stimulus and liquidity that has been put into a marketplace so quickly. And of course, that is having an impact because, we're seeing that money is actually turning. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see once again the stimulus stops, right, going forward, and what happens on that job number coming in July. So I think it's also interesting to know that, part of our risk here is weakness in manufacturing. Again, that's so critical to us. We continue to watch that very, very closely, but I'm encouraged by signs I'm seeing as far as the reemployment of those employees that are, again, waiting to come back after this July timeframe. The other thing that's interesting is spillover from other states. So I'm going to give you an example. Illinois, as unemployment is over 15%, whereas Iowa's was recorded last Friday when the results came out at 8%. So what's next, right? So this is probably my favorite slide because I didn't even know about some of these trends. And then somebody even said there was a Z-shaped, and I have no idea how that possibly works. But so obviously we need, the recovery needs to be sustainable and not just propped up by the stimulus money that we just talked about. Again, there's still a lot of fragility in the marketplace. And so even though with all the stimulus, and so we'll have to hold on and see how that's going to all shape out. But I want to talk about what these recovery cycles look like because Robin has educated me a lot. So obviously the one that we want is the V-shaped recovery, right? So basically we bottom out, but we come out pretty quickly. And then we're able to go back to that trajectory that we're working on a growth stage. I do believe, and Mayor, I was so intrigued when you talked about 521 housing units short in your community and that you have, again, been planning as a community for that growth and how you're going to accomplish that, because I do believe housing is one sector in particular that we could actually see a V-shaped recovery. Or with the rebounding process slow and protracted, activity takes a long time to reach its previous peak. So that's what you see with that U-shape, where it's really, it takes a longer time. It kind of struggles. It just kind of, it limps along. And that's really what we saw in the 08 and 09. And then, of course, economists have come up with all these new who said economists could not be creative, right? So we have a short downturn, an initial rebound with the swoosh, and then a slower process to reach in the previous trajectory as consumers have significantly altered spending habit. And of course, the two worst case scenarios, which we will not spend a lot of time on, are the L and the W. The W being that basically you have that short climb, you start coming out, and then we see another big COVID outbreak maybe in the fall. So those are things that we are going to follow very closely. So that's kind of using Robin's notes and great slides, our economists. That's kind of how we've looked at things and positioned things, and that's that macro view. So now I'm going to pivot our conversation to what we're doing around relief. So we did, as all of you, and I appreciate the community of Hiawatha and economic development partners there helping us with our survey. It was very clear that as we began to navigate this pandemic, that we were having to make decisions very, very quickly based on the information that was before us. But Governor Reynolds really said that we needed to make sure that we were not making decisions emotionally, that we were making it based on data. And that's how she set the course, and she has followed it all the way through. And of course, we have done that as well here. The very first thing I did once we started setting up the COVID, if you will, task force was I reached out to the University of Northern Iowa and our partners at the Institute for Decision Making. And I asked them to get us real live data and surveying. And as you remember, we had a tremendous response with that survey. About 13,000 plus individuals responded, and it was everything from nonprofit all the way to our largest employers and everything in between. from sole proprietorships and on. And in fact, it was some of the largest collection of data in the country. So we had other economic development organizations ask us to share the surveying tool, which we were glad to do. And even places like the University of Chicago wanted to see that. And so what that really showed us is not surprising, right? But the data supported it. The biggest issue we had was those consumer-facing businesses that were really in the most distress at that time. And the distress level was based on cash flow and liquidity because, you know, in some cases, people had a 2-week lifeline. So I want you to think about that. And they were being forced to close by proclamation. So we immediately propped up the Small Business Relief Grant. And I will tell you, this is a program, it's a population of the economy that we do not serve at any kind of scale at IEDA. And so we were asked to do that, and we were asked to do that in very short order. So we took a program that never existed. There were no rules, there were no guidelines, as quite frankly, there's not been any of that throughout this process. And so we propped up a program, and within 18 days, we had first awards out the door. Now, we started with $4 million, if you remember that. And as you can imagine, when the flood of applications came in, that was a total of about 14,000 initially, we were a bit overwhelmed. The governor immediately put more money into it. And today, we are still awarding grants, though I will tell you that we're getting close to the end of our final number, and that final number is $94 million. So we went from $4 million in a fund to $94 million. And I have to tell you, last week I opened a piece of mail that literally brought me to tears because it was a business that said they had to mortgage their home to keep their business alive, and this was their lifeline. So we know we're making a difference, and I think it also shows the heart of our governor of where her support is for small business. And 11 awards. I noticed that Pat, you're talking about 11 ribbon cuttings, and 11 awards actually went to Hiawatha. And so we've seen actually awards in all 99 counties and communities of all size. So when it's all said and done, is it a perfect program? No, but I have to tell you, at the end, I think the history will say we moved swiftly, we moved responsibly, and we moved with great passion. The other one that we've done on the housing side of IFA, as I am now director of IFA as well, is the Eviction and Foreclosure Prevention Program. It's been a little slow start due to the guidelines that if you're getting that actual $600 a week in CARES money, you do not qualify. We will be pivoting at the end of this month when that goes away, and I think we'll be able to help a lot more people on the eviction and foreclosure. The last one is the one we just propped up, which was the Small Business Utility Disruption Prevention Program. It's again to help those consumer-facing retail, businesses, those very small businesses, both for-profit and nonprofit. Again, helping them navigate some of their ongoing cash flow problems with mitigating some of their expenses on the utility side. And so that one is currently going as well. But of course, since we have proven ourselves here so capable of running these relief programs and doing them so quickly, we are rewarded with running more. So we just learned last week the governor would like for us to run 3 more relief programs, and that will be in the area of agriculture, and there will be a specific nonprofit recovery fund. That one should launch August 3rd. The agricultural assistance probably won't be till much later than that. We're still working through what that's going to look like. So I would say stay tuned on the relief side, as well as we continue to not only advocate very proactively with our congressional delegation of things they can do in the relief package, but we will monitor that as well and make changes to our programs as we see that going forth. I think it's also important to know that all of these relief programs that we're running are basically from the $1.25 billion CARE appropriation that came directly to Governor Reynolds. And the money has to be spent by the end of the year, and it has to, whatever we do on relief, has to have a line of sight to COVID, right? So that's the other thing, that we want to make sure that we're helping as many Iowans as possible. A large part of our relief fund, over 400 and some million, actually went into the unemployment trust fund. And I think that's important for the businesses that are, they're joining this cast today, that's important, because we're trying to make sure going forward, though businesses aren't going to be penalized for what happened during COVID, during layoffs, but we all have to share the cost of the trust fund as it stabilizes. So putting money in there, I think, was a really good thing to do as well. At the end, I would predict that any money we have left in any of these programs would also get put there, just so I was not going to be in a position that we do not use all of that funding. So that's the relief side of my presentation. Now I'm going to move towards what we're learning and what you can see from IEDA moving forward. So it's really about resiliency. And the one area that really spoke to us was in this small business area. And the small businesses that were able to pivot quickly and move towards an online platform are the ones that are actually, though they've lost sales, right? They're the ones that are going to come out of this pretty strong. And that became very, very clear. In fact, I think it was just the other day that we did the Open for Business award program through the Main Street. And there was the winner for the Open for Business, the grand prize was a couple that have a business in Spencer. And they talked about how they did have an online presence, but obviously not to the level that they have today, right? And they were able to pivot very, very quickly and move a great deal of their sales through that platform portal, and it has made all the difference on their survival. So knowing that not everyone has this expertise, and that state stepped up, and we actually are working with Shop Where You Live, which is an Iowa company out of Marion, and we have developed the Shop Iowa portal. And the state, being IEDA, is paying for all of the development cost and the infrastructure to support this. It is now, we're in the process of gathering products to put on there, and there's some guidelines of who qualifies. And it is planning to go live sometime in August. Now, again, we turn this around very, very quickly as well. The state will continue to pay the infrastructure, and we will pay for the first year of fees for this, for people to participate. And then, of course, obviously, the goal is that after that, the consumers will be in a position, or businesses, to pay the ongoing membership fee, if you will. And we still encourage communities to look at doing your own community page. But this is kind of a landing for those that communities are not going to do that, or just really as an entree for companies going into that online portal. So we're very, very proud of this initiative. And again, once again, proud of our team here at IEDA and IFA that we were able to recognize a need. We were able to recognize a gap. And we were able to fill that very quickly. And of course, working with and this is a private-public partnership, very, very proud of it. So that's just one. The second thing that we're doing that came through loud and clear is that now that we shut everything down, right, and that we're beginning to open, we still have to build confidence to Iowans that it's okay to get back out, right? And to build that Iowans unite and support small businesses. As you saw last week, Governor Reynolds started a social campaign about wearing masks. And of course, we have encouraged that as well. And so we have guidelines on our website about how to reopen, but we know we need to build this confidence. So we're coming out with a campaign. We've been shooting videos all across Iowa, and Stacy tells me they're just fabulous. We're starting a gift card marketplace program as part of this for those that want to help their small businesses through that venue. There'll be all kinds of opportunities to partner with advertising. And we're even going to, just as a sneak preview, we're even going to have a community pride contest. And so you'll be learning more about that as we unroll this initiative. So stay tuned. And finally, on my prepared remarks, You may be hearing about it. Many of you may be participating one way or another. The governor has set up an economic recovery advisory board. So as we still continue to do relief programs, and we'll continue to do that as long as COVID is here having such an impact on our economy, we really have to at the same time really pivot our thinking and challenge ourselves to think what's next, right? And to use this opportunity of take the lessons we have learned from COVID. And we have learned a lot. We have seen strengths and we have seen those things that we need to improve, our challenges as a state. And that's what this is about. So the governor has created an advisory board of private sector individuals that she chairs. And these are the groups of focus, the areas of focus in which we will be addressing economic growth. And my chairs are Adam Wright, who is the CEO of Mid-American Energy, and Megan McKay, who runs Peachtree Brewery, a great entrepreneur herself, small business owner, are our co-chairs with myself. And then we have these subgroups under economic growth because we have such a diverse group of stakeholders that we serve. So we'll be coming out with big thinking on how we transform hospitality and tourism, what housing looks like going forward for Iowa. We're going to look at innovation around those traded clusters, such as the bioeconomy and ed tech, and those sectors that give us the ability to truly scale wealth. You're going to see us come forth with a really very comprehensive manufacturing or industry 4.0 initiative that really talks about, again, digitalization and resiliency and how we have to transform for that. And COVID is teaching us that. And then, of course, we're going to see how Iowa economic development can do a better job of servicing that backbone of our economy, and that is our small businesses going forward, and how we improve our programs like targeted small business, how we help them more with marketing and telling those small business stories and really building that support of our main streets. And so those are the things you're going to see coming forward. It's really action-packed these days. We have to turn all this around by October. And so we've got about 130 people that are serving on these various subgroups, and we're trying to now, kind of bring all that together. So we're very excited about this opportunity that, again, in the midst of what are still challenging days, and we know that our economy is still fragile, we have to always keep an eye to the future and what we have learned, and take the lessons we are learning today and propel those into growth strategies for tomorrow. So Pat and Mayor, I close with this slide for all of your viewing audience, that we really want to encourage you to go to iowabusinessrecovery.com, to go to iowahousingrovery.com. This is where you're going to see all the relief programs we talked about. That's where they're going to be launched and housed. And if you want to know who got awards, everything's on there. It's very, very transparent. And so anyway, I thank you for this opportunity today. That's the end of my prepared remarks.
Well, thank you very much, Debbie. That was great information. We really appreciate your time and input today. We have some questions that have come in, and I think there's a question here that's appropriate for you, if you got a minute to answer. The question is, what advice would you give business owners struggling with COVID-19 as they make adjustments with their workforce and the way they do business?
Well, I think that the advice that I would give to anyone is to look at the resources that are out there. We have all kinds of resources that we've guided other company, stories of how other people are navigating it. But I think one of the things around work, we've all learned you can work from home now, right? Have we not? We only have 30% of our staff here at IEDA. And not only have we not missed a beat with our existing programs, but as you can see, we're launching all new programs. And I would say we're almost more productive today than, maybe we were when we were all gathered here. So I think what that allows us to do is two things. One, I think it expands the opportunity for workforce, because I think we now learned that you can work from anywhere. And I think employers are going to be much more open to that. So I think that's a lesson learned. The other thing is broadband connectivity, right? That that is the great equalizer here. And we do, and that's of course a subgroup of the Governor's Advisory Board, but whether it's delivering education, whether it's delivering healthcare, I think of healthcare, we've known, particularly in small communities, that we need to deliver health care through a teleport, right? That telehealth care is something of the future, but people were resistant to that change. Consumers in particular were not embracing that. But now we've learned we can do that too. And so I think we take all these great lessons learned and then we need to be adaptable. But I think that this new ability to work remotely is going to really change about how we even recruit workforce of the future.
Boy, I couldn't agree with you more on your comments. It all makes good sense to me. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you, Debbie.
Yeah, thank you very much for your time. We've got some other questions here that we'll see if we can't get answered. So our next question is, what happens in 2024 when the local sales and service tax is done? Mayor, do you want to tackle that one?
Well, that is our lost dollars. And we kind of touched on it a little bit in our presentation. It's money that the state receives that helps us with some of these infrastructure and projects that are needed for the city. And we're excited that we got the money, and we hope that we continue because it makes the community that much nicer.
Okay. Well, our next question, and I'll answer the first part of this because it's right up my alley. The question is it hard to manage COVID-19 publicly? I'm going to say absolutely. Yeah, I think it's been a challenge. I think everybody would agree with that. It's been unique. It's been new. You really have to be on the ball to know what's coming up and stay current.
Yeah,
and
constant change.
Yeah, definitely. And kind of going back to an earlier comment, feel free to check our website for updates that we have. Our next question is, you spoke of the Tower Terrace and Boyson Road. When will you see the Edgewood Road expansion?
Well, the DOT has kind of indicated to us that after we get the interchange at Tower Terrace completed, that they want to spin around and look at Boyson Road. And as that all changes, the traffic pattern will change. And we don't know exactly when we'll be getting to Edgewood Road, but we know it's on the forefront. And so I hope that we see that in the next 3 to 4 years.
Okay. Yeah, I love how the city's been so futuristic thinking in a lot of these.
Yep.
Another question is, when will the dog park open? And when do we expect to see Turtle Creek Park open? So the dog park and Turtle Creek.
Yes. We would have loved to seen the dog park open in the spring because we've received a lot of calls. Mm-hmm. And the reason that we had to hold up is because the grass. We were waiting, that was a heavily tree, and we just didn't have any grass, and we didn't want the dogs to create a muddy mess and never have grass. So we're getting close to having the grass. We're looking at the dog park August 5th at noon. We're gonna have a grand opening. Should be fun. You should be there, bring your dog. And then Turtle Creek Park will be done in 5 phases. The first phase will be building the road into the park with a half-mile trail around the park. Each of the phases in the next 4 years will invest in the park. So we've already got dollars set aside for investing in that park.
Okay.
And so it's going to start this fall.
And I assume people will be able to use the park as the phases are happening?
Yes, and you'll be able to drive by and see the progress.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your answers. As we conclude this year's event, I'd like to thank all of our participants for your continued support of HEDCO. We've had a fantastic 2019, and we're looking forward to an even better 2020. Please put on your calendar for our next free Hiawatha Summit, which is July 28th at 8 a.m. The session is titled, How to See Chaos as an Opportunity to Innovate. Before we wrap up, I'd like to invite next year's HEDCO Chair, Mr. Mark Parmenter, to say a few words.
Good afternoon to everyone who attended today's State of the City event. It's certainly exciting to see all of the wonderful projects that currently are going on in Hiawatha, as well as the ones on the horizon. I also want to thank our sponsors, the mayor, the city council, city staff and employees, both the fire department and the police department, all of the board members, and everyone who volunteers for Hiawatha to make our community a great place to live and work. I also want to thank Pat for his leadership of HEDCO for this past year, and all of the board members who serve our community and make HEDCO the best it can be. Thank you for your attendance, and we look forward to seeing you in and around Hiawatha.
Thank you, Mark. And thanks again to everyone for joining our live broadcast from Hiawatha today. This concludes our 2020 State of the City address. Be safe and have a great day.